I'm ready when you are.
Yes, so really happy to have you here on link from our eastern neighbors. Mikko Karvinen, you're of Nexstim, and I'll trust you to introduce yourself and your medtech setup. The show is yours.
Okay, well, thank you, Lars, and welcome alla. Welcome everyone. My name is Mikko Karvinen, and I'm the CEO of Nexstim, and I will be presenting to you about our company today. I'm actually going to start sharing the slideshow. So let me know if and when you see this.
It looks good.
We see it.
Great, okay. So Nexstim is focused on personalized depression treatment. That's our main focus, and I'll be talking today also about our other indications, including chronic neuropathic pain therapy, and then also pre-surgical mapping of the brain, motor and speech areas. But our main strategic focus currently is in personalized depression treatment. Nexstim is listed both in the Nasdaq First North Growth markets in Finland and in Sweden, so in both markets. And if you intend to invest into Nexstim share, here's some important information for you to go through. So during my presentation today, I will begin with an overview of our technology and the company. Then I'll move into our therapeutic indications, including major depressive disorder, and then treating also chronic neuropathic pain. I will move on then to go through our diagnostic business area, which consists of the pre-surgical mapping of the brain, motor and speech areas. And then I will have a business update and some key financials to review together with you. So to begin with, to summarize what Nexstim is, we have a unique proprietary neuronavigation technology, and we already deliver the best-in-class mapping and treatments for patients with brain diseases and disorders. We see that there is going to be a large shift in how the depression patients are treated in the future, and we're very well geared for that change in Nexstim. And with our improved economics, our record-breaking revenues and operational efficiencies, Nexstim is right now a unique investment opportunity. If we look into the technology and where we are as a company, we work in the area of personalized transcranial magnetic stimulation, in short, TMS. So you will see TMS in this presentation maybe quite a few times. If you look at the picture on the right, you will see the system, and you actually see in the background also some 3D model of the brain, which I've opened to the actual screen of our system. So this 3D navigation and 3D modeling of the brain based on the patient's own MRI is something that is very unique. And based on that 3D model of the brain, we can navigate the actual electric field that we induce into the brain. So we can stimulate wherever in the patient's brain cortex. That's our unique key differentiator. This technology is unique and proprietary, and we are already a commercial stage medtech company. We have both a diagnostic and a therapeutic business. Especially on the diagnostic side of our business, we have some world leading centers that already rely on our technology. There are over 170 systems that have been installed for pre-surgical mapping of the brain, typically prior to tumor surgery. And you can see some world-renowned examples of some clinics. So there's Mayo Clinic, MD Anderson from the US. We have Karolinska from Sweden and Charité from Berlin, just to mention a few renowned ones. We have entered also into a new area in 2018 to the depression treatment area. We have a competitive advantage based on this e-field navigation of the brain, which I mentioned earlier on. So we see that this type of navigation provides more efficacy and improved efficacy in treating the patients. We have seen 42% remission rates and 74% response rates in recent patient registry data that I have we have published in Nexstim. And I'll go through some of that later during this presentation. TMS depression treatment is already covered in the US reimbursement. So major insurance groups and Medicare already pay for the treatment of TMS treatment of depression. When it is done currently once a day for even a 6-week period of time. And then finally, but very importantly, we are very well positioned for the future development in this TMS area. So our current therapy system already can produce a so-called theta burst protocol, where we can have a 3-minute depression treatment in comparison to a normal 37-minute treatment of depression. That is the FDA-approved standard protocol. So a faster treatment way. We are also now studying in a pilot a very new area, which is accelerated ITBS, so accelerated theta burst protocol treatments, where Stanford University, led by Professor Nolan Williams' team, has shown over 90% remission rate in very severe inpatient hospital, psychiatric hospital patients. And we have an interesting pilot ongoing now in Kuopio University Hospital here in Finland in this area. Looking at the different approvals, so of course the approvals are very important for any medtech company. So depending on the usage of our product, if we first start with the therapeutic use, when we use our system for therapy, we call it an NBT, so a navigated brain therapy system. It is used then approved for depression treatment, both in Europe as CE mark and also FDA approved in the US for major depressive disorder. And this is currently so that we have 14 systems in the US, 14 NBT systems installed, and 14 elsewhere. End of June this year, when we reported last time the number of systems. For chronic neuropathic pain, we have also a CE mark, so we can sell and market it in Europe. And we currently have multiple systems installed in Europe in university hospital type of setup, where they are treating chronic neuropathic patients. But currently we would need still some more trials and some more approvals before we could sell it in the US. But we have also a pilot trial now going on in Helsinki University Hospital, where we are treating with the accelerated treatments chronic neuropathic pain patients. Very exciting, totally new study. No one else is doing this at the moment. And then finally, but importantly, the diagnostic business, so the pre-surgical mapping device is called a navigated brain stimulation, NBS device. It is both CE marked and FDA approved for pre-surgical mapping of the brain. And this is the only FDA approved TMS system out there. And we have over 170 installed systems around the world. So now focusing on depression first, the most exciting area of our business. We're entering into a rapidly growing market with a differentiated product. So depression is, of course, a widely affected disorder. So between 2 to 5% of population in developed countries suffer from major depressive disorder. We have shown that about 6 million patients, so 2 million in the US, 4 million in the EU, is our addressable market. These are patients that suffer from depression but cannot get help from either medication, so pharma, or from psychotherapy. So they are treatment resistant in that sense. Reimbursement is already in place in the US for TMS treatment, so it's more let's say, popular in there. We have shown growth despite the COVID environment. We did 18% growth in revenue in this area. And we have 28 systems installed globally, NBT systems. So 14 in the US, 14 elsewhere at the end of June. Currently, we are treating mainly, as you can see from the picture on the below right, we are treating mainly in psychiatric clinics and hospitals around the world, and also TMS centers, so-called TMS dedicated centers in the United States. So we are treating patients that typically are in outpatient, so they arrive to the clinic for the treatment. Now, when we look at the future, we see that especially these new type of accelerated ITBS type of treatments for depression, severely depressed patients, will shift the treatment for these TMS treatments also to the hospitals, to the psychiatric hospitals, inpatients. And this is what we are now piloting in Kuopio University Hospital. That can we replicate something that was done by the Stanford team with the so-called SAINT protocol, where they achieved 90% plus remission rates with a severe depressed patient group. This could mean that in the future, possibly we could move into treating patients in the hospitals with severe depression. And for example, in the US, there's over 650 psychiatric hospitals in the United States only that treat severely depressed patients. So a huge market potential for the future. But now the pilot studies, of course, to begin with. Here are some clinical outcomes recently. So we published this fall the first 108 patients from our Nexstim patient registry. So patients that have been treated for major depressive disorders. All of these patients were in the United States in clinics with a Nexstim system. We achieved 42% remission rates and 74% response rates within this patient group. And these are superior to multi-site studies that have been conducted and have public information, where typically the remission rates are below 30% and the response rates are between 40 and 50%. So this is highly exciting data that we have already shown from our patient treatments. We move on then to chronic neuropathic pain. So this is the other therapeutic area we are focusing on. It is less evolved yet, but it's a very interesting area because chronic neuropathic pain patients, there are even more of them possibly than major depressive disorder patients. So 10 million is our estimated addressable market in the EU and US in total. 40 to 50% of these neuropathic pain patients are without effective pain relief. So they don't get pain relief from medication or other forms. We've shown very exciting data done in an early phase study in the Walton Center in the UK, the leading NHS pain center, where 44% of the patients that had a Nexstim NBT therapy reported a clinical meaningful pain relief of at least 3 weeks duration. This is quite early, of course, but we do have a CE mark. So we are treating patients, for example, in the Helsinki University Hospital pain center. We are also now doing a pilot study in Helsinki where we are applying the accelerated treatment protocol for chronic neuropathic pain patients. It's a 5-patient pilot that has started this fall, and we anticipate, of course, to see what happens when we are treating with the accelerated treatment. This is a future area, so it's very interesting, but it requires more trial work still before we can move on into more deeper commercialization of this indication. Then finally, but very importantly, our diagnostic area. So we are using our technology for enabling a substantial increase in progression-free survival in brain cancer surgery. And this is commercially validated technology. This is the technology that actually the company first started as a business. So our NBS system significantly improves the clinical outcomes in neurosurgery. So the surgeons are better able to prepare and be more aggressive in the tumor resection. And there is one study result from a German study done in 2014 with the Nexstim system, where 46% of there was a 46% increase in the progression-free survival in low-grade gliomas, when the NBS system was used in pre-surgical mapping of the brain. And if you look at the right, you see some renowned clinics, MD Anderson, Karolinska already mentioned, Mayo Clinic from the US, Charité Berlin, Boston Children's, and so on. So especially in pediatric hospitals, it is an important way of mapping, because child patients are less able to be mapped, for example, with fMRI or certain competing technologies. So NBS pre-surgical mapping is very valid tool for those type of surgeries. And then finally, our business update and some key financials. So we publish our financials twice a year. If we look at this, is getting a bit old, but the first half data is what we have available since August, and we have focused on minimizing the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as updated the company strategy during the first half. We saw strong progress in our business considering the difficult business environment. So we sold 4 NBS systems. These are the pre-surgical mapping systems, 3 in the United States and 1 in Europe. We also installed a total of 5 NBT systems, new installations in the US and Europe in total, across multiple sites, and these systems were used for the treatment of major depressive disorder. Historically, the first half of 2020 was the company's best first half ever. We had the best total net sales, operating result, and result for the period in this time period. And especially in the NBS side, our sales grew by 47%. This was mainly due to the US being very strong in the first half, despite the COVID, and we were very happy about that. The therapy business also grew slower, but it grew 18% in a very difficult environment where a lot of clinics had to have lockdown measures and shut down temporarily. So we are happy that we managed to grow, and we were actually the only TMS company public that grew in the first half of 2020, and we're happy about that. So the direction was right. We also completed a successful rights issue that was oversubscribed, and we raised a total of 2.2 million euros of growth equity in a very difficult environment, I would say, during the springtime. And then Business Finland, also a government-based R&D loan facility, also decided not to collect 0.9 million euros of loan capital that resulted from some stroke rehabilitation business line that we had developed earlier on. So those were the good financial news. Only a bit about the financials. You can look at more at our public website, but I want to show a few figures also highlighting. So as I mentioned, net sales grew strongly, 33% in total to 1.6 million. Our expenses, because of our saving efforts during the spring and summertime especially, we managed to save quite a bit on the expenses. You can see the percentages in there. Our operating loss decreased by 45%. Loss for the period decreased by 68%. And then if we look at our cash flow, in comparison to first half 2019, we did a lot better. So the cash burn decreased by 58%. And the cash balance at the end of June was 4.8 million euros, which gives us a sufficient runway until end of Q1 2021. And our future outlook for this year that we updated also quite recently is that we will see a growth year. So the net sales will grow in comparison to 2019. And also our operating loss will decrease in comparison to 2019. So both a growth year and a lesser amount of loss that we are projecting for 2020. We are going to publish our 2020 figures on the 26th of February next year, 21. And then a final slide on some of the financial measures. The revenue, especially in the recurring side, has been very beneficial for us, and you can see that the growth in comparison to the trend on the right side of the figures has been strong recently. We also, because of the nature of the therapy revenue being more pay-per-use lease type of, or monthly fees type of payments, then we have a very high margin rate, up to 95% margin on the recurring revenue side. And 100% of the therapy revenue in the first half of 2020 was recurring. And we are aiming to grow profitably, especially because of the higher amount of recurring revenue in comparison to the pure system sales, which is still important, but the margins and the profitability in the long run are better in the recurring revenue side. If we look at the additional future revenue possibilities, the big ones that are still, let's say, in our business plans and looking forward to is, first of all, the accelerated ITBS protocol revenue. So this is the new type of pilots that we are running. We see that the potential in moving into the hospitals and treating severely depressed patients in the hospital environment is a very big possibility. No exact numbers, but this is, of course, the savings that can be achieved even per patient have been estimated to be around $22,000 per patient. So if we decrease the length of stay per patient 11 days on average, That's $22,000. And the product launch, because of the trials, the possible multi-site trials and the FDA approvals, take this business to closer to 24. But we are on an exciting path on that. And then a second line of revenue that we see for the future as on top of the NBS and NBT revenue is this US clinic opportunity, where we want to deepen our relationship with some of our key partner clinics in seeing that how can we get the business model working so that maybe Nexstim would be part of the patient treatment path and the value chain in a more profitable manner also for ourselves. So not only be a typical TMS device or a system provider. So exciting areas both, and give a growth potential for the future. But no exact numbers at this stage, but we are working really hard on these both areas to accelerate our growth for the future. And then this is almost the final slide, but if I look at the objectives and milestones that we have near term, the first one is obviously the one that we want to decrease the operating loss, and we focus on achieving profitable revenue growth and strict management of operating expenses. Especially in this COVID environment, it is very important that we monitor the environment carefully all the time. The full year 2020 is estimated to grow, so we have a net sales increase, and operating loss is expected to decrease in comparison to 2019. So we are succeeding in what we've set up as an objective for ourselves in the near term. We have started 2 new pilot studies, as I mentioned, one in treating severe depression in a Kuopio University Hospital, and the other one treating chronic pain in Helsinki University Hospitals. And these are both pilots focusing on the accelerated ITPS therapy treatment protocols. And we will be keeping the markets updated on the progress of both of these trials as they proceed. We are also continuing to develop the deeper profitable partnership model together with our clinics, especially in the US, and having a valuable discussion how we can take the partnerships forward in the very near term also. The patient registry has grown to 108 patients now in the short term. We continue to grow the registry, but the current results, 42% remission and 74% response rates, are very positive in comparison to a typical below 30% remission and somewhere between 40 and 50% response rates in clinical studies that have been published. We continue also on the diagnostic side to develop our reimbursement process in the US and search for a strategic partner that could possibly commercially help us with the increase of the volumes, especially in the long-term distributorships. And then finally, we will obtain funding to achieve our strategic vision from the capital markets and/or through the strategic partnerships. And we have an active project going on in this area at the moment. And then finally, to summarize where I started with, I hope you feel that you have received more information about the company. We have a unique proprietary neuronavigation TMS technology. We deliver the best-in-class mapping and treatment for patients with brain diseases and disorders. The shift that is going to happen in the depression, severely depressed patients through the accelerated treatments, we are very much geared and positioned for that change to happen. And then with our improving economics driven by record revenues and increasing operational efficiencies, Nexstim is right now a unique investment opportunity. So that's all what I had in the presentation, but I hope that there are also questions for me to answer. So thank you.
Mikko, thank you very much. Can you release the screen share so we get bigger?
I will. Let's see. So stop sharing.
Hey,
there
we are. Oh boy, I have to choose between look this silly and bend my knees. I'll do a combination of both. Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for an exciting presentation. We actually here in this room had another medtech company from Uppsala in Sweden.
Okay.
Just an hour ago, and they took a severe sales hit due to COVID and the treatment centers being very busy and on a bit of a pause to integrate their systems. However, boy, I'm really nice today. This is a nice question. That does not seem to apply to Nexstim. You have a healthy, is it like a 30% sales increase for first half 2020 versus 2019?
Yeah.
How do you manage to get that rolling in lieu of the pandemic?
Thank you. That's a good question, Lars. Thank you, and happy to answer that. First of all, one of the things was that we have the pre-surgical mapping side of our business, the NBS devices that are used for diagnosing the brain prior to tumor surgeries. We had capital sales in there, especially in the US. So despite the COVID pandemic, the hospitals, neurosurgery is an area where the hospitals can't really, say no to the treatments, and those deals were late in the sales pipeline, and the hospitals wanted to take those purchases to the end. So they purchased those sales that had been developed earlier in the first half, and we were very happy about that. And we got them to be installed also, because there was some installation issues. I mean, some hospitals just said that, we won't let anyone in for any externals. But we got those hospitals approved so that we could deliver. So that's one part of the story. The other part is that we have quite a bit of systems in the therapy side where we have things like a monthly fee. So the system has been provided by Nexstim, and we invoice the clinics monthly. We also have systems that have a kind of a pay-per-use basis. So there's one disposable called a head tracker that is placed on the patient's forehead, and each one of those per treatment head trackers costs something. So a lot of our clinics, if they still stayed open, and most of them stayed open for even despite the COVID, because depression treatments were needed, we had a recurring revenue element, either monthly fees or per treatment fees. So we didn't sell so many new systems, but we got revenue despite the pandemic. We did see some closures, like in the US, we had a few clinics that had a total lockdown, like in the New York area for a month or two. So we did see some total lockdowns, but because our business is global, it didn't really hurt that much. So places like Finland or Sweden, we were treating quite a bit. I mean, still patients were treated in depression despite the pandemic, and actually still are. But we are very cautious about it. We need to monitor. As you know, there are lockdown measures that are maybe coming, even severe ones. But currently, at the moment, this is still okay for our business, even though the pandemic is worsening.
Yes, obviously so. For ProHearings, we always do a 3-year share graph on participating companies and pick up that. And year to date, from hundreds of companies, we had one exception, and that's you. Because when we did the 3-year graph, the absolute bloodbath, I think it's around August 18, just wiped out. It's just there on the ground. So we did another graph showing that from January till November 2020, you're actually, I think you're up 100% or something. But obviously, not for an investor, bad things happened 2 years ago. What was that, and how could that be so bad?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and it is of course a question that needs to be answered about our past. So we started a new. So when we have indications now, we have depression and we have chronic pain in the therapy area, and then we have the diagnostic business. We used to, since 2014, so between 2014 and 2018, we were introducing a new business area, which was stroke rehabilitation, so stroke treatment. And there were early signs based on phase 1 and phase 2 data that the stroke treatment, stimulation of the brain in comparison, combined with physical therapy, so physiotherapy, would give a better result for the stroke patients in rehabilitation than physical therapy only. The results were good in phase 1 and phase 2, and we started a multi-center trial that lasted all the way until 2018. But unfortunately, this strategy had risks in it, which we knew only after the trials are done. And as you know, maybe from medical pharma business and also in medical devices, sometimes phase 1 and phase 2 results are positive, but when you have a larger patient group in phase 3, something happens and the data is not the same anymore. This happened to Nexstim. So unfortunately, the great phase 1 and phase 2 data were not, the same data didn't happen in phase 3 anymore. So we had excellent data for both patient groups, but we did not get a difference between the active and the sham group. That was, of course, a huge disappointment. It was an actual risk, a strategic risk that the company took, and those investors investing into it between 2014 and 2018, and the risk realized. So in 2018, because we had to then reshift our strategy, we took stroke away. We can no longer, I mean, there are still some believers in it. It's a long story. There are some believers and some hospitals even use our system to stroke rehabilitation. But the trial itself, we could not show that it's like the FDA approval trial failed for us. Now we shifted into the treatments that we have approvals for, the ones that we have the science and the data already. These are depression, then we have chronic neuropathic pain, and we have pre-surgical mapping of the brain. So currently, we have all the areas that we are treating have at least a CE mark, and then 2 of them, so major depressive disorder and the pre-surgical mapping, we also have FDA approved. So we came back to kind of a lower amount of risk in our indications. And that's the answer. And we did also quite a bit of changes in the management of the company, and not all of them were triggered by the management team, but there have been changes in the board, change of the CEO. I'm been the CEO now since February of this year. And you have seen that we've done quite a large strategy change, where we are now focusing more into major depressive disorder, but also the accelerated treatments future, chronic neuropathic pain, and pre-surgical mapping. So our strategy has really changed, and I hope to see also valuation that the valuation increase is due to these reasons.
Okay, here's a question from an investor in the audience.
Yeah, okay. If I understood you correctly, it's a daily treatment for 6 weeks. And yeah. Then my question is, how quickly do you see any positive effect? My second question is, do you avoid all the side effects that you have in electroconvulsive treatment of memory loss? And thirdly, do you have any hard facts as to what really happens with your treatment?
Give us a reasonably short answer.
Yeah, very, very good question. First of all, the normal treatment that we do currently is once a day for 6 weeks. So even 30 treatments because of normal days, not weekends. We see a result typically in the clinics after 4 weeks or so. So the last 2 weeks are emphasizing or strengthening the response. In the accelerated treatment, which is a new area, it is multiple times a day, even 10 treatments a day for 5 days is what they do in the hospital. And this has provided 90% remission rates. Now this accelerated treatment, when you're in the hospital, the electroconvulsion therapy that you mentioned, ECT, could be used for patients in a psychiatric hospital. Now our device, if we use the accelerated treatment method, it is superior in remission, if it would be 90%. And we don't have side effects like memory loss. We don't have side effects like seizures, there are relatively small amount of seizures in comparison to ECT. So those type of things are side effect wise, TMS is a lot better. Yeah, and the pain, there is a relatively small pain. There could be minor headaches typically, but not the ECT type of approach in side effects. Memory losses, painful, and also possible seizures. So that's one part of it. And did I miss the last point? Was there one more?
What happens? What happens on the brain?
The microphone, I didn't hear that.
The question was, give a short answer, we're running out of time, but what happens on a brain level?
Oh, yeah. Well, when you stimulate the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, so that's on the left side of the brain here, there's an area that is the size of a coin, rather the size of a coin. And it has been shown in multiple TMS therapy studies, there's a lot of papers, that if you stimulate that dorsolateral prefrontal cortex area, then you are activating that area, which helps in depression. So for some reason in depressed patients, that area of the brain has been deactivated and has lower metabolism and lower activity. When you stimulate that with our TMS or TMS stimulation, it gets reactivated, and that helps in depression. That's as far as scientifically it has been proven. It logically will have connections to the deeper structure of the brain from the cortex. But the cortical area, so you could say the brain surface, is where we stimulate. But then the neurons and the activity goes to the deeper structures of the brain.
Okay, thanks, Mikko. I'll allow the final question for myself here. Okay. You have the MBT therapy systems, and we learned there were 30 installed systems as of now. Yep. Swedish analyst house and corporate finance and finance everything, Redeye, well known here in Stockholm and Sweden, recently gave you a peak sales number of 47 million euro, which would add a healthy bottom line sales to you. My questions to you are two. Do you agree, or how should we view that number? Number two, if things go as you hope, when could you achieve sales number somewhere in that area for the MBT therapy systems? Is that 6 months away, 6 years away, or 16 years away?
Okay, thank you, Lars. Good question. I won't give the exact amount of years, but we had 3.3 million euros of sales last year, and we are anticipating a growth for this year. So it's going to grow definitely from that. We have informed well our analysts at Redeye, and we have keep close communication with them. So I think that in an analyst-wise, their estimate of the future, we would say, is on a reliable basis. I think things like TMS are still, as you will read also from that report, we are very early now in the stages. So depression treatment is a huge area, and the TMS companies are now treatment that is, of course, pharma is the largest, psychotherapy is also there, even ECT and ketamine treatments are big. So now TMS is entering into that market. I definitely see that we are striving for huge growth amounts in the future in Nexstim, but we need to step that. First you need to start walking and then running. So there's a potential for these type of technologies, because pharma or psychotherapy just doesn't work for everyone. We are not saying that everyone should take a TMS treatment, but if you are suffering from a treatment-resistant depression, you need to try new things. And TMS is a good solution if you compare it to other treatment possibilities like ECT or ketamine. And especially in the psychiatric hospital environment, we have a lot to do. I think TMS can really break into that area, hopefully through these pilot studies and these Stanford type of 90% remission rates. It has I would say that it should have a bright future in that area if these can be shown.
Hey, Mikko. Here's an applaud from ProHearings in Stockholm. Over to Finland.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Lars.
Hope to see you here in real life 2021.
I hope, yeah, very soon. I mean,